Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very good day to you, good afternoon, good evening where you are. Possibly if you're watching us via live stream on our website, it's www.hilaal.tv. And remember, you can do that everywhere, anywhere you are across the beautiful lands and the mountains. I'm Gouwah Solomon. Stay with me as we look at your diet, your meal plan, your hydration. What is that like? What is it currently doing for you? What will it be doing for you if you want to improve it? And also with the kiddies at home, at school rather, extramurals, us being on the road or, working in the offices, what do we need to know about our diet? So we're speaking to registered dietitian Faiza Laha, based here in Johannesburg Central, to guide us on our meal plans. Assalamu alaikum and welcome Faiza to our studios.
Assalamu alaikum. It's lovely to speak to you again about nutrition and health.
So this is something that we do on a daily basis. We love our food. We love to experiment. We love to indulge and sometimes overindulge as well. But alhamdulillah, we as Muslims are learned to travel the middle part, and we have a beautiful hadith where third, third, third. So let's hopefully guide us through that. But the first thing I want to kick off the show with is the benefits of seasonal foods. When foods are out of season, is it a good idea to stick to, that? And what are the benefits? How do we look at it? How does it improve our lives? I don't know, cost does play a role in it. So let's understand the foods that are coming in, when it's not in season, and knowing our forefathers, they grew up and we grew up with what was there at that time and how our body reacts to it and how we get used to it. So inshallah, guide us around seasonal foods.
So seasonal foods are always a better option than buying foods or produce that's imported. Firstly, the cost plays a very, very big impact on what you're going to choose to serve on your table. And we know that I'm sure many of your viewers are very cost sensitive at the moment with the way prices are looking.
Yes.
What I like about seasonal produce is that sometimes we can find them on promotion and we can use these foods to batch cook, to freeze meals, which make it easier on days when moms and dads are running late and you can just pull something out of the freezer for a lunch or a supper or something like that. Seasonal foods also have more nutritional value than imported foods because of the time it takes for those foods to get from farm to table.
Okay.
And in fact, frozen foods can work just as well in this regard because often frozen foods are processed on the farms and they're flash frozen immediately. So those nutrients are held in those vegetables and fruits. And when it gets to you, sometimes the cold chain is still, in order, so it hasn't been broken. And, if we're going to be buying especially fruits and vegetables, we want that to have the best nutritional value it can possibly have.
And talking about nutritional value, how do I keep that nutritional value when I'm cooking? Because, of course, if I'm taking it from farm to table or from freezer directly or from counter to my mouth, I know I'm getting from where it comes from right back into my tummy and my body. But when I'm cooking, often people do make that mistakes and they lose the nutritional value. Is it possible?
Definitely. So there's two ways you can lose the nutritional value of the foods you're cooking is by boiling, because often actually most of our fruits and vegetables have a lot of water-soluble vitamins. So if you're boiling it in half a pot of water and you're adding bicarb of soda to that, you're washing away a lot of those nutrients that you want from, for example, the green beans, right?
Okay.
And if you're charring the vegetables until they almost like burnt and very, very crispy, again, you'll lose a lot of that nutritional value. Okay. So steam, grill, stir fry, anything, pop it in the microwave will also be fine as long as you're getting in a variety and a lot of color.
Cooking time on certain veggies, what are they?
Okay, definitely. So it varies between different vegetables. You don't want any of your vegetables to be almost like a mesh. So you don't want it to become mash. It must still have a little bit of a crunch to it. And in that way, you'll still find that you'll be able to taste that natural sweetness that comes with the veg, the different types of fiber, the different textures. And this is what we should be exposing, especially our kids to, is the difference between different vegetables.
I just found out from my 26-year-old mommy, I hate crunchy carrots. So what am I supposed to do with her wanting crunchy carrots? Soft carrots, and the others wanting crunchy carrots. So it's a bit of a headache. And I said to her, listen, you just got to gel with what everybody is eating. So let's talk about, for instance, carrots or broccoli. I know when broccoli is cooked and you lose some of that green color, you're losing a lot of that nutritional value if you're steaming it maybe too long or if it's cooked. So if you're putting it in a stew, and you're cooking it to the softness that maybe one of the kids like, is that nutritional value in that pot still?
Yes, definitely, because
Okay.
remember those vitamins are going from the vegetable into the sauce that you've got going in the stew. But your vegetables, if you're stewing them, you want to add your veg at almost the last moment that you
And
can, and give
yeah.
it just about 2 boils, and it should be done. Or otherwise, for someone who wants it a little bit softer, you can maybe scoop out for the rest of the family and give it a little bit of extra time.
Okay. So great ideas when you have to compliment everybody in the family. Let's look at anything else you want to add with regards to cooking foods, because that was just fruits and vegetables. What about our meats and our chicken and our rices? What is a good balance there to cook not to its
So a
death?
lot of the research is pointing to a more of a plant-based diet. So leaning more towards plant-based proteins like your beans and your legumes, because of the impact it has on reducing, bowel cancers, breast cancers, etc. Because we know that populations that eat a lot of meat, especially red meat and processed meat, they have a higher incidence of, many different types of cancers. So try to alternate it, or maybe use your lunchtime as a vegetable option, and then supper would be your animal-based protein as you usually would. So that's quite important, looking forward into health, preventative health especially.
A lot of people are trying to implement sunnah ways of eating now. The barley flour, and some of them, at least when I look at people in my age category, trying when they get older, they realize, okay, like let's try and implement certain things. What are good things that we can take from sunnah if there are any?
Definitely so many
Yeah,
benefits. We can
alhamdulillah.
never ever discount what we can get from these foods. We must always remember though that even though something is sunnat or good for us, more doesn't mean it's going to be better. So
Okay.
diabetics need to be careful on the honey.
Okay.
Barley flour or talbina is a great food to include for Ramadan, for breakfast. Make it more interesting by adding fruits or yogurt on the top. So it gives it a little bit of color. Add them to foods. Substitute, maybe if you're doing a smoothie, instead of doing oats, do half talbina, half oats. So that's a
Okay.
great idea as well. And our Prophet also always stressed the importance of balance. So balance is really, really important. We don't want to overdo it, because we know that when we do, it does impact us later on. So that's really, really
The
important.
long run. So that's what we're only realizing later on in our lives. But inshallah, if we can implement it early with our children, it will take through when they're adults. Let's look at the hydration and water intake. Some people really struggle with water. I know there's a minimum, and wherever you go, it's 8 glasses, 2 liters. But there are people that really do struggle. Let's talk about the importance of it and how they can substitute and include it.
Okay, so the first important one to look at is, what are you substituting your water for? Are you drinking a lot of teas and coffees throughout the day? And that increases your caffeine intake, which also, disrupts sleep. So be mindful about that. And perhaps think of your water as, fill up a 2-liter bottle in the starting of the day, so maybe at 7 o'clock. And by 6 o'clock in the evening, you need to be done with your 2 liters. A glass every time after you go to the bathroom, with your meals, in between meals, if you're taking a walk, almost sometimes even every hour. A nice idea to do is to add fruit or vegetable sticks to the water to almost give it like an infusion, something we call fruit-infused water.
Yeah.
Gives it flavor. If you're very used to drinking sweetened drinks, then think of reducing your juice to about half a glass and then topping it up full with cold water, sparkling water. So that would give you that.
Because people do struggle to not just include the water, but it's so bland. Is that added to the water intake when you are having water to your juice or having more coffee and tea, or is it just clean water, 2 liters?
So it includes all. So it will differ. If for a person who really struggles, it can contribute to that. But we must be mindful also about the amount of sugary items we're adding to the diet, even if it's to the water. So sugar is really just taste on the tongue. So if you can reduce it, slowly start to reducing it, and by increasing more of your water intake.
Okay, so coffee and tea, is that included as well?
No, not at all.
What is a good time to have your coffee and your teas and your rooibos? I mean, we're lucky in South Africa to have the red bush. But sometimes people are having coffees quite late. You did say they would struggle. So let's talk about the intake with the additional drinks.
Okay, so with most
and the
people,
sugar.
definitely.
Yeah.
So how much of sugar are you adding to your tea and coffee is the first important one. Try to keep it to a minimum, right? And then try to minimize the amount of coffee and tea you're drinking. If you find you very tired and you need to drink a lot, then look at your sleep. Are you sleeping well? Which is really important. And then herbal teas are really great addition. You know, peppermint tea, rooibos, chamomile, especially in the evening. Boiling water with just mint and lemon or ginger, also really great for winter coming up. So there's many ways that we can increase our fluid intake seasonally without having to just drink plain water if you're not too keen on it.
And soda water, sparkling water, is that an addition to your 2 liter intake?
It can definitely fit in because those are not sweetened. But just be mindful on if it causes a lot of bloating and abdominal discomfort, then keep it to a minimum.
Okay, we continue our conversation with registered dietitian in studio with us, guiding you on your meal plan, your diet, as we often call it. Oh, I'm on a diet. No, actually, you're just watching what you're eating. But we continue this. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. We're talking about food, and you know, when you do that, it just brings a smile to your face. In studio, we have a dietitian, registered dietitian out in Joburg Central, Faiza Laha, and she hosts various workshops and talks as well. So very interesting conversations we're having with her in the breaks as well. Faiza, welcome back. We're still talking on hydration and sort of looking at how we can include it, how we can substitute, and how we can just actually start drinking more water. We think that we're doing 2 liters. I try really 8 glasses of water. Some people in my household, it's like, Mom, that's a lot. We're really struggling. So there are additional watery drinks that they are drinking. They love the yogurts. They are their fruit juices. I just try not to buy it, but from time to time you have to keep stock when you have visitors. The fruit infusion ones are very interesting for me. What I found and some ideas other moms has given me is during the really hot days, we try to put the fruit in the freezer, actually. Cut them up, put them in the freezer, and then actually use them as ice blocks in the water. So I don't know how good that's going. And then schools are actually encouraging children, in fact, as a rule, not to bring any sugary drinks. They are only allowed water. So let's run through the understanding of the hot summer days and how we can be hydrating better, because sometimes we do just forget that water or that water has gone hot in the car or something of that sort. So just guide us on, keeping ourselves hydrated. And it's easier said than done sometimes.
It's not that easy, but if you are a person who does not drink a lot of water, you're not used to drinking a lot of water, try increasing it a little bit slowly. So, if you were previously maybe getting in 500 mils, try to get to 600 by the end of the day. So every small little change makes a big difference over time without having to feel that pressure that, I need to get to 2 liters, especially if you're not used to it. It's not in a habit. Okay, so one of the other things we can do is send milk to school. So milk is a really great addition.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if it's flavored or not, because the most important thing from the milk is the calcium that the children need to get. So with kids over time drinking a lot of sweetened drinks, we forget that they actually need to drink more milk for good bone development, right? The other problem with the sweetened drinks is that it does cause a lot of dental caries and problems with teeth. So we want to decrease on a lot of those sweetened drinks and the juices, etc. And perhaps think of sending a little bottle like this of milk to school, chocolate or strawberry, and pop this in the freezer overnight. Because
strawberry milkshake.
So it's a little, this is just strawberry powder mixed with full cream milk.
Okay.
And I'd put this in the freezer overnight. And this will also serve as a little cooler in the lunch bag.
Okay.
So by the time she gets to it at about 11 to 12 on a hot day, it would be almost like slush. So you mix it and it would be like a smoothie. right?
I just wanted to say, how do I keep it fresh? Because milk, yeah.
Yeah, so milk will go sour very quickly, especially if it's very hot.
Okay.
But if it's frozen,
Frozen
it
the night
extends
before.
that
Okay.
time. And then when they get to it, it's really nice and cold. And the kids feel like, oh, wow, that's, really just
Love that
boost
idea.
me
Yeah.
on a really hot day. Okay. We can also use regular water bottles to as ice blocks in our lunch boxes, especially for parents who travel, who are on the road, and you don't want to keep stopping at a garage to buy water. Again, in the freezer overnight, two of these. So usually with food safety, we usually say in one lunch bag you need 2 cold sources. So either like an ice pack or a water bottle, or 2 water bottles, so that by the time you get to 4 o'clock, you still got cold water, and you don't feel as tired and as exhausted as you would have felt if you didn't drink any water or any fluids. So that's really important. The other one you can do is, a lot of the shops have these insulated flasks.
Okay.
So these work out quite well. A few cubes of ice or the frozen fruit pieces, and then it will stay cool until about 1 o'clock. So with smaller children, the water bottles that have a little straw on the top work quite well, because it's easy for them to drink without them having water spill all over them. In summer it's okay, but in winter it can be a challenge.
I have a son that refuses to drink anything with a spout on. So I have to look at bottles that has, like you've got the grey and the blue one here, that has no sort of straw or anything. He wants to drink directly from the bottle, and then the others I must choose with spouts, which is a little bit easier.
Yes.
The children with different temperaments.
So,
we just have to
like that, we want to
yeah.
accommodate everybody, and if you get something that your child likes, that's always a way to getting them to improve their intake. And the starting of the year, take the kids shopping to the malls or to the to the shops and see what water bottle do you like, what do you drink out of, what's your theme going this year in terms of characters or whatever else it is that they like.
So that's a good idea also, because now you're making them part of the process. That I chose that bottle, I'm so excited to drink from my water bottle.
Yes.
And what I found also, so that's these really hot summer days, is the night before, getting them involved and say, oh, did you put your water bottle in the freezer? Just fill it halfway, or is there ice ready for you for the next day? But I've got quite a busy routine with regards to majasa, and I'm sure most kids as well. They've got majasa in the afternoon, and sometimes they go straight from school, or they have like a 10-15 minutes literally to do this madrasa run, and understanding that this is not actually what is happening when you think of, okay, they get used to the routine, but at the end of the day, they sort of understand, okay, this is it. So getting children involved as well in actually choosing the bottle, like you said, when they have chosen the bottle, this is my bottle, I want to drink from the water bottle. Then secondly, they know that if they're not going to ice their bottle the night before, they're not going to have cooled water, cooled milkshake or whatever. So get the kids involved, because sometimes it's so much on moms.
It's definitely a good idea, getting them to be a little bit more independent. It's really a very, very great idea. So the days that they're going straight from school to madrasa, and it's very, very hot, this is when a juice will come in handy, just to give them that little bit of extra, boost in terms of sugar. So we must remember that even though a lot of the juices say 100% fruit juice, it's not just like when mom chooses an orange and it's straight from the orange onto the table. So it's often sweetened with apple or pear juice. So we must be mindful of the amount of cartons we're drinking a week.
Okay.
But for children who go to madrasa and they're very active, they just finished at soccer or netball, and they're tired, this juice is going to give them that little step up that they need in terms of energy, and they'll burn it off throughout the day. But being mindful of how many are they drinking, pair it with a quick healthy snack. So they can eat in the car.
Okay. So how many should they be drinking?
So I would say not more than 2 in a week.
Okay.
And you must understand that these are items that are not that cheap. So we don't want to do them too often, and they can fit into our diet, because we don't want to label foods as being good or bad, but we don't want to do them too often. And it becomes
it's a treat.
It's a treat, definitely.
All right. So children that struggle to eat is also another issue. Picky eaters, and I've heard this from dietitians, like you've got to try the food at least something like 20 times when they're just starting to eat. And I don't think any of us went to that limit. By the third attempt or fourth attempt, we're like, no, this child doesn't want any this type of food. So let's talk about picky eaters, children that do really struggle with their water intake. And I think a good idea is when the school has rules and then they kind of stick to that. So I squeeze in the sugary drinks, the oras, the afternoons, little bits at a time. So what if they're just refusing to have the water and to have certain foods and green vegetables and stuff?
So it does become a problem when there are whole food groups that they leave out. And sometimes it is a bit of a sensory issue, so working with an occupational therapist or a speech therapist helps with that. But we have something called Pediasure, which we use quite often. And why this product is so great is because it's complete in one carton. So pop this in the fridge or in the freezer. They can drink it on the way to school or madrasa. It's got protein, energy, all packed in one. So it's not just like a fruit juice or a sweetened milk that you're drinking. It's got vitamins, minerals added. So at least your child is sorted in terms of all of that. Because if they're leaving out a lot of veg, and they sometimes they're quite picky in terms of if things touch or certain colors, can be very hard.
There was
for
a mark
moms.
on the apple, mommy. There's a bug in there. I'm not going to eat.
And when the lunchboxes come home uneaten, ask them, why didn't you eat this? It's so good. It's so delicious. I love it. And sometimes it could just be that the fruit went, limp, or maybe the apples went brown. Or my daughter says, the ones I cut the strawberries in half, and she said, no, but they went all mushy in my lunchbox. When I looked at it, it was. So try and leave certain fruits more whole, and certain fruits do better if they are cut.
It's very interesting because I used to have the attitude, no, they didn't eat this, I'm not making this again. And when I had the conversation with my youngest, and I said to your brother made lunch that day, the brother made lunch because he loves eggs. And he made a scrambled egg with tomato sauce and lovely toasted. And then she came home with the 2 slices not eaten. I said, well, what happened? Why your brother made all this effort? And I think because the brother made it, I asked the question because now the brother's feeling bad. And she said, no, mommy, by the middle of the day, the egg went mushy on the bread and I didn't like it. And then I understood, okay, I told the brother, like, let's not make it 4 slices, just make it 1 or 2 slices. So that conversation is actually after 5 kids, I realized that I should be having this talk
it's
with
very,
him.
very important, especially because that sandwich went in the bin.
Yes.
And,
actually, we gave it to the chickens.
As much as we want to, we try and avoid having food waste. So having that conversation is really important. And asking them, what do you prefer this week? Like sometimes I have to ask my daughter, are you eating cucumbers this week? Or are you eating rolls this week? So because I want her to be nourished at school. I want her to be able to sit at the desk and do her writing and, get to sport feeling not drained.
Feel good.
Yes. And what we're packing for them is really important. So have that conversation. What are you eating this week? Or what would you like to have this week?
That's so important, and I didn't get it until the 5th child. But we want to continue this talk. We actually can still talk more on children and their diets and what to feed them during the week in between the madrasas. Snacks as well is going to come up, so we talk more. Don't forget to interact with us with regards to this conversation. Our various social pages are open, so talk on your meal plan, what works for you, because it might just help the mom who's watching right now. We'll continue this diet, food-related conversation and hydrating in this hot, summery days and preparing also for the winter ones just after this more. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good day to you. Good evening, possibly, if you're listening to us sometime in the evening, sitting back, relaxing. We talk about food, as I said earlier, and it always just brings a delightfulness in the room. And I think if you're already thinking of Ramadan, you're on a good start. Possibly think of some sunnah ideas, some healthy ways, cut up fruits. Yes, if you're still into the frying, the air fryer is a very good option using your oven, but we have a dietitian who will better guide us through that. Welcome back, Faiza. Shukran so much. So Faiza is based out in the central Johannesburg. I'm sure very busy and has been part of some of her workshops. Very interesting. We are still talking about children hydrating. And us as parents, we often forget about our lunch boxes and what we need to pack for ourselves. it's not always, by the time you get to the third or the fourth lunchbox, you're just so exhausted, like, "Ah, I'll just grab anything." So let's talk about the balanced diet, what we should be looking at, not just the evening when we are ready to cook for our kids, but also throughout the day. What can we be packing in for ourselves and for our kids, and also some of the portions that we can look at.
Definitely, it's not that easy. I must admit, even for my own self, sometimes it's hard to feed a family. And I think what we want to do here is just pull back the curtain a little and show you how easy it can be. And parents should definitely be packing lunch boxes or making some lunch for themselves while they are packing those lunch boxes for the kids.
Alkaline is a very big thing, and watching labels is also something that I've learned because of all the added sugar, the salt, and with hubby being high blood pressure and looking at diabetes being in our family, how we can reduce. That's only at the older age you realize to start watching it. What are some of the things, the labels, the ingredients? Because often we forget that sodium on the label is also salt. Carbohydrates points to some of the sugars as well. Can you guide us on that?
Definitely. So label reading is a really good tool to have in your toolbox when you are out shopping. So be mindful of the label in the back, and you always want to look at the column that says per 100 grams. Okay. And you always want to compare two products that are the same. So you can't compare yogurt and a pasta. Okay. One of the most important ones that you can look at to make it very easy for you is to look at the fiber. So if a product has more than 5 grams per 100 grams of fiber, then you know that that's a higher fiber item, and the chances of them adding a lot of things like sugars or sweeteners or salts to the product is minimal. So the other thing after that to look at is the ingredients list. And the ingredients list is always listed in descending order. So from most contained in the product to the least contained. And usually the last few are more like the preservatives or the colorants or the additives, etc. And in the first 5 ingredients, you want to really see, is there any sugar added? Where's the white flour on the ingredients list? And make your decision from there. So more higher fiber items usually has less sugar added. They have they shouldn't have any white flour added, and they're more healthier for you. And they are the items that are more brown or whole wheat, etc. Because that's what we need. We need to aim for a minimum of 35 grams of fiber per day for an adult female.
And spices, because we do use quite a lot of spices. What are options when we are buying spices or choosing the whole and making it ourselves? I know the aunties and the grannies, they're so famous for roasting it and then grinding it themselves.
So with the spices, you must be careful with spices that have MSG added or sodium added. More like the marinade type items have a lot of salt. So go with fresh herbs or dried herbs, dried spices, cinnamon, ginger, garlic, to flavor your food, chilies. But sometimes, when we want to watch on salt, we don't just want to add too much of heat. We want to add more flavor. So look at things like if you have a nice windowsill that gets decent amount of sun, plant a few pots of fresh herbs, chives, mint, coriander, lemongrass, basil. So all of this you can just quickly, pick off and just add that to your food. So it gives more flavor. And then you don't need to, heat up everybody on the table because the food is too hot.
Yeah, have maybe that extra, I usually keep an extra jar of chili somewhere so then they can choose to add chili or not. I remember my dad used to put a whole chili. My mom used to have these whole chilies ready for him. Not often, but so rather as an addition.
That is, and be mindful of salt on the table. So taste your food before adding salt and be very mindful of that salt shaker, because salt comes in not only with cooking or adding at the table, but also foods that we use that are usually salty, like salty crackers, pretzels, biltong, etc. And what happens is we usually stack our salt intake up throughout the day. So even though the food has minimal salt, we've eaten a lot of salty items, which contributes to blood pressure.
I've seen some kids that just pour the salt on. The food's already got salt on, but there's salt on the table. They just keep throwing. How can we, help those children? And are they lacking anything? Is there something going on in their system that's needing all the salt?
It can also just be something that they just used to doing. So, being used to having a lot of salt in your food is just a habit. Salt is just flavor on the tongue. So you want to slowly decrease the amount of salt that you use, or perhaps in that case, don't add any salt to the food.
Okay.
Because you know they're going to oversalt it on the table.
The types of salts that are good for us, because I know salt can be quite cheap, but if you're spending a little extra, what are the good salts to buy?
Salt is salt at the end of the day.
Okay.
So whether you're using Himalayan salt or black salt or sea salt,
Doesn't matter.
it's all salt.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the lunchboxes. Very excited about some of the things you prepared for us. Understand the balance that needs to be in the food that we are packing in to take us along when we're not at home.
Okay, definitely. So remember, what we're aiming for is cook extra for supper, so that any leftovers can go into the lunchbox the next day. You can pack them into wraps or sandwiches, etc., things like that. And for the lunchbox, we want to look at something whole wheat. So for example, this is an example of an adult's lunchbox, right? So we've got a whole wheat roll, and here we can do tuna, chicken, pastrami once or twice in the week. So something with, with a good quality protein. And here what I would do is just cut this in half. So you could have half at about 12 and then another half a little later, because these rolls do tend to be quite filling.
Bulky, yeah.
Yes, and that's what we want. If you're managing your weight, or if you need to watch your weight, especially as you said, we get older, we don't want to be feeling hungry all the time. So we've paired this with 2 fruit portions as a snack, and together with one of the fruit portions, you can always carry a yogurt with you, and then a fiber portion in terms of maybe a little veg sticks or small side salad, if you're not including it in the roll.
Got some carrots in there. So
I've got some carrots here at the bottom.
Carrots is not usually included as a fruit, but the kids do actually enjoy it because of the sweetness and the crunch.
Yes, and the crunch. So with kids, what you want to do is have an item that they can quickly grab with them and run to play soccer, or run around with their friends. And little items can also make a difference. Like for example, if you bake your own little oat bars, and they can grab this and take with them.
Oh, we need that recipe.
Or even children who like raisins, or older kids who won't choke on them. So raisins is a good idea. Quick release sugar, and that's also sometimes they can nibble on when they get to class if they've forgotten to eat at lunchtime.
Okay. There's some more lunchboxes we need to get through.
So what we have here is something a little bit fancier. So what we have here is a pita, and we'll do some chicken in there. I've got some fat-free cottage cheese. So that's quite nice, high in protein. Keep those blood sugars stable throughout the day. Any teacher will tell you.
So you've just got cottage cheese on it.
Just got cottage cheese.
Okay.
If your kid is a little bit more adventurous, hummus would work well in there, or even broken up chicken pieces, or a tuna will work well in there.
Okay.
And can you see how it's
simple,
quick, grab and go, right? I've got one of these little oat bars that we baked with cranberries in there. So this is also quick and easy to go, right? We've got some fruit. So I've got some cubes of melon.
Wasn't sure if that was cheese or fruit.
So cheese will also work well. And cheese is really nice to pair with fruit.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I've got a small little treat.
Okay.
It's always nice
for
to
all that healthy eating.
Definitely. So don't worry. You don't need to tell the kids, look, eat your lunch first before you have your sweet stuff. That's never going to work. Yeah. So they will always start with this. It's a little joy when they get to their lunchbox, and try not to include foods that they're not used to. Okay,
so don't try new foods in the lunchbox.
Definitely,
rather try it at home.
Because the lunchbox is something that's very comforting in a long day. Learning a lot of new things, maybe in the start of the year, new teacher, new friends, new school. So it's comforting. So go with something that they like. Peanut butter sandwich can also work.
Oh my goodness, I have a nephew. That's all he eats. Is that a good or bad thing?
It's perfect. It keeps him full. It keeps him going. And if, the chances are if he didn't have that peanut butter sandwich, when he gets to the car around 1, he's going to be so irritable and, hangry. So peanut butter is fine.
Yeah, I believe that's a new word now. Angry and hungry.
It is together. Because remember, when our blood sugars fall, it's not just, a physical thing that's going on. It also affects our mood. And if you want kids who are stable, who their moods are good throughout the day, they don't feel irritable, we want to feed them well, and we want to feed them often.
Okay.
This is a really good idea for on the way to madrasa, in the car. So this is just a little yogurt. This can also work for a younger kid going to preschool.
Yeah.
So what I would do is for a smaller child, cut the banana in half, or 2 kids can share banana, a little bit of pretzels, and the yogurt with protein and carbs together, so it'll keep full for longer.
And just filling the water bottle again.
Definitely.
Okay. So we want to realize that this is something that us as adults we don't think of. Would this work for moms and dads also on the road?
Definitely would work. Remember, a good cooler box is going to be your lifesaver. And sometimes what you can even do is put that in the freezer overnight so the whole box is cold, especially
Oh,
in hot weather, right?
okay.
And something you can also use is one of those little flasks. Say if you've got extra pasta or extra rice from last night, that can also work as lunch. That can also work for older children who have a longer day, who are only coming
Yes,
home maybe
yes.
4:30. So a cooler will work. I mean, a little insulated flask will work well. And you get some that are decently priced,
Yes, we
not super
do.
fancy. If they got lost, it's fine, but it will serve its purpose for a little bit more of a filling meal later on in the day.
I was thinking of the Pediasure and how teenagers they would actually grab these energy drinks, these
Yes.
canned energy drinks, which is such an irritant. And if you give them snack money, that's what they buy. So to have that Pediasure, is that good for them as well at their age? Could they take that in?
So it's aimed for children until about 12 years, but
Okay.
it could work. It definitely could work. The other thing that they can do is a frozen bottle of milk with Milo or Nesquik in there just to keep them going. Because if they're at university, they're walking a lot, they've got to pay attention when they're in those lectures. So feeding their bodies well, fueling their bodies well is really important.
Okay, I think we need to take a break quickly. I wanted to look at some of the signs and symptoms to watch out when it does come to hydration, lack of nutrition. We spoke about a lot of things and you showed us some yummy stuff. Hopefully we can snack after the break. We have Faiza Laha in studio with us, registered dietitian based out in the central Johannesburg. But we'll talk more in our last segment, some of the signs to watch out for when you know you are dehydrated and lacking some nutrition in your body. Back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. A very good day to you. Don't forget to catch our social media pages and also the upload of the shows. So if you have someone that you'd really like them to watch it, you can tell them that it will be available on our Hilaal TV YouTube channel the next day, inshallah. And there's also repeats on a Wednesday and Sunday. I'm Gouwah Solomon, and our last couple of minutes we're going to wreck the brain of Faiza Laha, our registered dietitian in studio with us, and she had some yummy treats earlier on, some exciting lunch boxes that she prepared for the show. So thank you so much for that, putting in the effort. We want to look at now the signs and symptoms to watch out for. You've mentioned quite a few as well. When you're tired, you're feeling thirsty, and in fact, I've heard that when you're feeling thirsty, it means that you're really dehydrated. I don't know how true that is. So let's talk about some of the physical and emotional signs. You spoke about hangry. That's a new term. Oh, my kid came home hungry. You know, there's definitely food involved in there. As kids, we can start there and then we can move on from adults.
So thirst is usually the first sign that you need to start drinking water. Very important. And irritability and tiredness you'll notice more towards the end of the day.
Okay.
But if it's a hot day, a good rule of thumb to go with is to carry extra bottles in a cooler or in a little bag in the car so the kids can drink as they get in, especially if they go from school to maybe a soccer match and then they're going off to madrasa. That's a long day and they do need to hydrate. The other one you can look at is the color of your urine when you go to the toilet. Okay. So perhaps more adults than children this would apply to, because children are not usually
looking at
that, right? So if your urine is very dark and it's got a strong smell, you're dehydrated already, you need to start drinking water. By dehydrating and by not drinking enough water, what happens is you can catch urinary tract infections more often, or bladder infections, especially if you're sitting a lot or you're not very active. Don't forget that you still need to drink water if you're sitting in an air-conditioned office, and you need to drink more if you're driving or if your job requires you to be in the car throughout the day.
But that's a bit of an irritant, because you're thinking you're drinking, oh no, I need to go to the loo often. And that's what puts a lot of people off. In fact, I do that same mistake. I'm going to be on the road. I'm not going to drink so much. So is there any, I know that they say when you drink Zam, you won't run to the toilet. You don't always have that at hand, or even in the country. So let's talk about that irritant of thinking, oh, I'm going to have to go to the toilet all the time.
So try to get to the bathroom between meetings, between offices where you're driving. Keep
ahead of time, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Keep a little mental note in the back of your brain. the nice bathrooms, the clean bathrooms, wherever
Yes.
you can get to it.
Use it first.
Use it as soon as you stop or before you get going again, so that you can keep up with
Yeah,
your
you
fluid
often
intake.
forget.
It's really important.
Yeah.
Often, sometimes we mistaken our cues for hydrating for eating. So we often mix that up and we eat instead of drink, which happens a lot with adults.
How do we not make that mistake?
Drink as soon as you feel like you need to. If you're feeling snackish or you have a little bit of a craving coming on, or if you feel very sleepy or tired mid-afternoon, before reaching for something sugary or with caffeine, try to have a glass or a bottle of water.
So there's two things I picked up there: snacking, and then when you're feeling tired. I found that helped is, and you think, it's only for old people, but it's actually a sunnah to take that qailula, that quick nap, even if it's 10-15 minutes, shut eye, if you're in your car or sitting at home. And we get so busy at home thinking that our mind is driving us, and then we're not able to calm down. So maybe after Dhuhr, I think, is the recommendation. And then how important does that actually help? And then if you can talk to us about the snacking, the correct types of snacking.
Okay, so and that is a good idea if you are able to. But for a person who goes from meeting to meeting, that's not that easy. And if you have lots of meetings lined up, or if you've got a very busy day, don't forget that you need to fuel your body. In between meetings, take a 15 minutes brain break in between. Pair that with a healthy, balanced snack, so that your blood sugar levels are a little bit more constant. And when our blood sugar levels are regulated and they sort of between around 5 or 6 millimoles per liter, you'll be able to feel that. You feel energized, you feel good to go, think clearer. So those are really important. And we often find people who don't fuel their bodies well from breakfast. Mid-afternoon, they tend to feel very tired, very sleepy, very lethargic. So that's important to remember. Start eating well early in the day. Start hydrating well early in the day. So the mid-afternoon is not such a drain for you.
Ideas for snacking and the good snacking. I know people have spoken about popcorn, your biltong, of course not the very salty ones. Just give us some ideas, because often when you are that hungry, you feel like snacking, you just buy the wrong stuff.
Exactly. And when you're that hungry, you'll eat anything without having to feel for that satiety that you're looking for. So snacks should be a combination of either a protein and a starch, or a fat and a starch, for good blood sugar control and for weight management as well. This will work for children as well. So like we had in the lunchbox, we had a yogurt with a banana. So it's the protein and the starch, right? Fruit is a starch because it contributes to our blood sugar levels. We can do nuts and a small nachi in winter. We can do biltong and maybe a peach or a fruit. So that would work well. So pairing them is just as important as the portion size, as when you're eating it. So pair them correctly for good blood sugar control, for more efficiency, more balanced moods, etc.
I noticed that you didn't have a lot of breads. It was the pita and the whole wheat rolls. So let's talk about breads, because sometimes that just adds to our getting full, but it doesn't give us much energy, does it?
So bread is a great starch, especially a whole wheat bread or a low GI bread. So I like to usually pack a roll for lunch, or something whole wheat, a whole wheat bread or whole wheat roll, because it gives us that sustained energy throughout the afternoon. But it must be paired with a good quality protein, enough fiber, so that digestion is optimal with a slow release of blood sugar. You obviously don't want to do 3 slices of bread at breakfast and then another 3 at lunch, and then maybe lunch is like supper or pasta. That is quite a bit of starch at one sitting. So remember to break your meals up. If you feel if you're snacking, then your main meals don't need to be as big, right? But you should, your starches should be whole wheat. They should be unrefined grains, so that you don't feel sleepy mid-afternoon as well.
Oh my goodness. We don't realize that the breads is actually making us sleepy. I know there's so much more to talk about, but our time is running out. I want to repurpose leftovers. You spoke about it in the lunchbox, and then also help us understand how do we keep food fresh and the nutrition locked in.
Okay, so keeping your fruit fresh has a lot to do with keeping up that cold chain. So frozen lunch bags, frozen ice packs, frozen water.
Frozen lunch bags, what are those?
So take your whole lunch bag and leave it in the freezer overnight.
Oh, okay, the insulated lunch bag.
With the water, so that you can it will stay cooler for longer, especially on the hot days. If you're traveling or,
Yeah.
it's hot, the kids leave their lunch boxes in the sun,
Sure.
this
Good
will
idea.
work, okay? And then the frozen water as well will keep the food colder for longer. You can even freeze a peanut butter sandwich, so by the time the kid gets to it at 10 o'clock or 11, it's
so hot,
defrosted,
it's
and it's still good to go. So that will work out quite well. And then
leftovers.
the leftovers. So leftovers work so wonderfully by batch cooking, by cooking a little bit extra,
Okay.
freezing extra so that you can use them again. Instead of making just mac and cheese for supper, throw in that extra chicken that you had in the freezer, throw in extra beef strips that you had to up that protein intake. So the meals are a little bit more balanced. Soups freeze well. Halim in Ramadan freezes very well, and that's a really great idea as a lunch. A soup that you maybe made last week, you pull it out with a toast or with a salad on the side, or with a fruit. That can also be a balanced meal.
Okay, and then also with the leftovers, if you've cooked it that day and you have the extras, you're saying we can actually pop it in the freezer and add it to another dish?
Definitely.
if
That's
it
what I
was a
would do.
stew or
And
whatever.
our grandmothers always used to say, leftovers always taste better because the spices have sort of got into everything, and then it's just that flavor is just more robust and wholesome. So, so if you have leftovers,
Yeah.
and also what's a nice idea is if you plan to cook extra and you know that the chicken is going to go into a wrap for the kids, or it's going to go into a sandwich for yourself or for your husband, into a pasta.
I'm
Possibilities
laughing.
are endless.
Yeah, I'm laughing because these are. It's a very interesting, very interesting day when you go to the freezer and you open up. They call it a bucket, which is a container, your ice cream container, and you think you're going to get some lekker ice cream, chocolate, whatever vanilla is on there, and you open up it, and all it is leftovers. So the kids enjoy cold meats. What are good cold meats? What are cold meats that they love to have, which are the vihannas and the polonis, and that we need to restrict our kids to, because having a polony sandwich every day, I don't know if that's a good idea. So if they enjoy that cold meats, what are good cold meats to have and to eat in balance?
So a minimal, you can rather go for a smoked chicken, or
Okay.
like a pastrami, or a salt meat that's actually meat that's been sliced,
Right.
almost preserved and sliced, has less salt. So a lot of the cold meats have more of a fat content and salty content than actual meat. So minimal. But a good idea for the
When you say minimal,
Viennas,
is like what, 2-3 times a week is too
I would
much?
say even once a week, and try
Okay.
to alternate it with a chicken mayo, with maybe a pasta, with peanut butter, a cheese sandwich as
Alright.
well. So what you can always do is maybe on a Friday, keep these items for Friday when you've almost had your fill of cooking, making lunch boxes, and
Okay.
this is an easy one to go. So it can be maybe samosas on a Friday, or a hot dog, or cold meat sandwich, or something
Okay.
a little bit easier.
Different, yeah.
And they know that Friday is maybe hot dog day,
Yeah.
or something like that. And
Fun.
yeah, it's fun, it's easy, and they still get to eat what they like. It's not breaking the bank from all the good eating throughout the day, but it's just keeping the plan real and easy.
Faisal, we have to wrap up literally 30 seconds for your last words, concluding comments to our viewers, families at home, and elderly also. Let's not forget that, how they can keep their balanced diet, manage their weight, and still stay hydrated.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun just to talk about these things and unpack it easily. I hope this has been beneficial for your viewers, and we hope to do it again.
I mean, inshallah, definitely taking you up on that offer. We have to have a part 2 for the kiddies as well. So maybe on the parenting show. Shukran so much, and hope to see you soon again, Faiza. Laha in studio with us, our registered dietitian based out in central Johannesburg, advising us. She also has some workshops and talks, so maybe you can invite her to your madrasa or school. A very interesting concept she has, and we'll try and get some recipes from her for that oat lunchbox bar. Looking forward to doing things at home with your family together. Get the kids involved, get the hubby involved as well. It's a family thing when it comes to eating. So enjoy it, live it, and be healthy at the same time. And don't forget to hydrate. From myself, Gouwah Solomon, stay tuned to our next episode on health and wellness. And remember to catch our repeats over the weekend and the next day on our uploads on YouTube. Wassalamu alaikum and goodbye.